guys, what is going on? It's Red Mash here, and welcome back to part 2 of our Megapatch late review. It's been again, if you haven't watched the last video or the part 1 of this, you'll know that I'm kind of a week late on these notes. But with technical issues, a vacation, it's been a bit of a tricky time trying to find time to upload. But anyway, let's go right into the changes. I left off on the last video with the wall tower being the last of the basic cards that were improved to promote new player experience and to sort of simplify the game at the lower levels. That way, players can learn better and transition into higher levels of gameplay easier. But there are a lot more changes to go. Starting out with the range units, we're going to jump right into it. And our first card is going to be Mage Apprentice. Now, the Mage Apprentice is a card that, well, it hasn't changed much. Now, some of these cards haven't really changed much since the patch in terms of usage and stuff like that. But Mage Apprentice, of course, hasn't seen any sort of increase or decrease in play. It's still played in Awakened deck. Sometimes you'll see it in the range. For 2 gold now, you can get it out easier, and it's got that increased health to promote range units. And part of that mechanic change has also got that 2 to 3 range, like most of the other cards, like the first couple of cards we'll be going over. But yeah, its ability is the same, hasn't really changed much, just that cost decrease. And that health increase sort of promotes range units a bit further. Cannoneer, definitely a unit that has seen some change. Its health has been massively decreased from 5 to 2. Most likely it's because it's been given that 3 range with the explosive damage. It does promote sort of like, that you may not be able to group your guys together because hell, Cannoneer might pop out and blow up your little guys that are huddled together. So a good change. I like how it's not stacked at a 5 health like it once was. It's good at 2. It's fine at 2. I think you should keep it like this. Good change. Moving on, we have the Acolyte. Now the Acolyte was a card that hasn't really seen much. It's seen a lot of decrease. And it's gotten a bit better. I wouldn't say it's gotten a whole lot better, but it's gotten a bit better. It's decreased to 1 attack, but with the 2 to 3 range, it's basically like a mini Sea Witch. It's got the same stat lines as Sea Witch, except it's half the price, and you're summoning half the units with it. So I think Acolyte basically is on the same level as Sea Witch now. Just sort of, you may have to take it out as a small priority unless you want to be flooded with some zombies immediately following. Elvish Hunter. Now, Elvish Hunter did get a HP increase to 5, but, for me, that still doesn't justify her ability or her, or attack. I don't really have much words for Elvish Hunter. It's just a card that hasn't seen much play since its attack loss, and one that people just don't want to play because they don't want that card advantage. You don't want to... Again, if you've known the channel, you know that I do not like to give my opponents cards, which is why I do not play cards like Elvish Hunter, Dragon Lore, even though sometimes I do play it if the necessity is high. I don't play Santa at all because, I don't like giving my opponents the advantage. Unless it's Christmas, and then I'll make a cute Santa deck and stuff like that. But other than that, no. So, for me, Elvish Hunter hasn't really changed, and I don't think it's changed for anyone else, because it hasn't seen action since. Wind Mage, stat change. It's now a 2-1. It's alright. Promoting it as a stronger mage for 3 gold. It's, again, the same range and all that. And pulling it from Maddie can be beneficial sometimes. Other times, it's like, why the hell did you come out and you pull everything out of range, you old fart. But, yeah, that's Wind Mage. Moving on to Tarius. Tarius got a buff to 2... Whoop, I passed him. To 2 attack, which is pretty cool, and especially being a lot more devastating when pulled from Maddie now, because not only are you getting a mage from Maddie, you're also getting 2 dragons. In Dragon decks, Tarius hasn't seen, it's seen a bit more action, but not too much. But with Maddie, Tarius has definitely seen some heavy action, and I think his attack justifies his gold line, like his stat line, his gold, everything. So pretty good change for Lore Master. Moving on, we have the Troll Gunner. Troll Gunner got a big revamp. Troll Gunner is now a 5 gold, 3/3, but with the same initiative ability, which is okay. But I think this is what people are talking about. They want that 3 attack in a range unit to really show off its power. Troll Gunner has seen a slight increase in usage since being a good part of range decks and stuff like that. I can't really say the same about greed decks because, greed's been dormant for quite some time. But I think Troll Gunner got a nice change and one that might promote him in action a bit more. Moving on now to Saurus. Where are you, buddy? Got a attack increase, which is fine. That 3 range definitely makes him a bit of more of a threat, not just one of those bodies that appears and wanders the field because you needed him for the Awaken ability, which is good. I always felt personally that Saurus was just, when you play him, that was it. There was nothing really to go off of. You just had that body wandering. So good that he got an attack increase because now he's seeing a bit more action. Darkbender got a movement reduction to 2 movement, which is alright. But again, that 3 range would have requires you to have that movement limitation, which is fine. I like Darkbender where he is now. I think he's a good card. Again, range decks, you're seeing him a lot more, so good on them. Fire Drake got a change to now have a chain of 2, which is especially devastating for swarm decks, if you will. It makes pulling him from Tarius, Dragon Taming, Search all the more worth it, because you're getting that extra chain damage that you would normally have to use a temple for to get the same level of chain that you have now on the base Fire Drake. So, very good. I like it. It's you're still kind of keeping him at the 3 attack because with the 1 and the chain of 2 that equals 3 plus the chain of 2 to everything else. So definitely a bit more of a hard hitting dragon Drake, whatever. Door Knight. Door Knight is one that has seen a great increase since its great increase in play since the change. It's been buffed up to 10 health. That's pretty much the baseline health of Yarm or Ragnar. And you're getting it for 5 gold. This makes him tricky as well because every time an opponent will hit him, he'll have to give a random combat unit costing 2 or less to your hand. This has promoted some use, like, some early murder uses. They're worried about Door Knight, so they just murder him without worrying about a Yarm or Fenrir or something bigger and more badder later on down the road. Door Knight is being taken he's been used as the murder target very early. And if players don't have a murder, they're trying to find a creative way to kill him without flooding their opponent's hand with that, unit influx, if you will. And cards, and there's a bunch of cards that we pulled from Door Knight too. You got Sunflower, you got Missionary, Faithful Drake, Ice Drake, Manfish, all decent cards for the 2 gold range, and you're getting them for free just by having Door Knight take a few shots. So I've started to incorporate him more in my decks, and some people have as well from TV. But yeah, I definitely think Door Knight was a great change and one that's made him a bit more dangerous than what he once was. Moving on to School of Knowledge. Now, do I really need to talk about School of Knowledge? Not many people play it as it is, and now that's just been reduced to 2 gold. It's sort of in the same place. You can play it earlier on now, so that's a big plus on you to get that. I mean, I guess thinking about, saying it out loud now, you could, if you're doing a hard-hitting face deck, it wouldn't hurt to throw maybe a School of Knowledge in. Maybe if you want to continue to have a card advantage over your opponent, get an early shot in with Spiny to draw an extra card. It doesn't hurt because, when Spiny's played, not much is sent out to block it. So, sometimes you can get a School of Knowledge uh, ability off. If you're feeling lucky, if you feel like you want to experiment with something new, then that's always a place to turn to, I guess. So moving on, we got Hedwood. He hasn't really changed except for his ability, like his area of effect damage. It's now 11 by 5 instead of 11 by 3. Definitely a bit more tricky to handle. Still trying to figure out myself the right positioning for where I have to be to avoid a Hedwood blast. So that shows you a bit more of how much dangerous he's become, especially coming off of a Matty. Good change on Hedwood, making him more of a decent threat. I've seen people actually go in with decks consisting of Imp and Hedwood being in an Awakened deck, and then just blasting that damage with Saurus. Not even hitting the castle, just using the abilities, man, using the abilities. From there we go on to Minotaur. Minotaur hasn't really seen much change since this, but he got a stat increase to 5/5. Still, not that impressive, seeing as how you have a Demon Hunter in the Ninja slot that has the same stat line for a decreased cost. So, but if you're running Monster, then you got a plus with a extra Minotaur health. So, because Minotaur is tricky to handle, like he can sometimes be a bit tricky to handle if you're not prepared. So, coming off a Monster Tamer or an Alki or something like that. But anyway, going on to the Imp. Imp has seen, again, he's one of the cards that has seen a good deal of play since the change. The Awakening of Teal. Deal 2 damage to the enemy castle. Definitely more than his previous 1, and a bit more significant seeing as how Sudden Death's at 1 damage. But to compensate this, he has a decrease in health, which is perfectly fine, I understand. If you want to disintegrate it earlier on, so you don't have to deal with that damage, that's fine. But yeah, Imp has become a little more popular since the increase in ability damage. From there, we move on to Spitefish. Spitefish hasn't really changed all too much, except in ability and in not ability, stat line and gold cost. For 3 gold, you're getting a 3/3 body. So basically, a step up from 2 gold for a 2/2 body. Hasn't really stopped Salahar from being played. A slight, if anything, there was a slight decrease, but nothing too major to affect Spitefish's popularity overall. Continuing the Salahar trend, we are moving on to Soldier. Soldier is a card that wasn't really used too much to begin with, but he's got a 3/4 stat line now. Wait, what was that? Yeah, 3/4 stat line now. I forget if it was like 3/3 or something. Or 4/3 maybe. Ooh. But now his greed is permanent. I think now that we have Killer Rabbit out, which gains attack permanently, they're trying to expand that into the Soldier, promoting a bit more of a greedy tactic. If you want to use a House of Daggers or a Master Thief Invest pairing with Salahar Soldier, you could potentially have a 4/4 or a 6/4 for 3 gold, which isn't too bad. I definitely want to experiment more. You can see this little deck shell that I'm saving right here. I'm playing around with it right now. I still haven't found the last 3 cards I want to throw in here, but when I do, I mean, it might be Salahar. I'm thinking about just throwing Salahar into this, but we'll see. We will see. Garden Knight. Garden Knight has got his ability increased to 2 health and a heal of 2 instead of a heal of 1, which is good. At 5 gold, the heal 1 was sort of like a little extra bonus, but now at 2, you're really making it worth something. Again, this kind of relates back to the sudden death change. Now that it's dealing 1 and every bit of health matters, so giving yourself 2 could potentially help you for another turn if you're struggling or falling behind, if you will. The Gravestalker, moving on, has got an increase to 5 health, which is alright. Undead hasn't seen too much play, like Greed, so Gravestalker not appearing as often. If he does, then interesting. Most likely he'll be played in an undead deck for sure, but since the change hasn't increased or decreased in play at all. Construct, unstable. Unstable definitely saw a huge increase in play since the change. A body of 4/7 now, meaning that the opponent has to go further to take out the construct to weaken it enough so that it is no longer a threat. This hasn't bothered me as much because I've always found a way to deal with construct. Construct was never an issue for me. I'd be willing to sacrifice a body or two to take it out, especially if it was from a guard. Because again, I throw guards in my decks now, so yeah. I mean, I can't really say much else. Just take the extra step. I know people have slightly complained, but like even then, people like in response, other people have said just spend the body. You don't need to worry about it. If you're getting rid of something like this powerful for that gold cost this early on, just take it. So, moving on to Defiance. Defiance has become an interesting card since the change. When it was changed on a few days after the patch, you saw Defiance decks pop up as a red-yellow with cards like Door Knight and Pyromancer receiving that Defiance buff, jumping from 1/7 to 7/7 or from 2/10 to 10/10. So, um, Defiance has even gone as far as to be classified slightly as a new meta deck, but that really has yet to be seen. I mean, I don't know how many people play Defiance, but if you do, then you're helping the Defiance movement. Good on you. The Magic Eater. Magic Eater has seen a slight increase in play, jumping from a 3 move to a 4 move, and that 4 move really makes a difference of, taking out a Primordial Flame instantly. No longer can Aura just be willy-nilly aggressive. They might have to watch out for the Magic Eater snipe from, I classified it as a snipe because literally the Eater can just run out, and if there's a Primordial Flame or a Furnace Knight, since it's a 5/5 now using his initiative ability, yeah, he'll just gain a nice increase to 5/5 and take out an early Aura unit. So, he again seen a slight increase in play since, and I've gone as far as to sort of use him as a protection level. Let's say I don't know the exact wording, but we're gonna go with that. Oh, I skipped over like 2 patches. I'm reading them further down. Let's go with Murder's Mask right here first. Murder Mask, of course, got to reduce to 0 gold, which is interesting because now you can play with that Killer Rabbit combo. If you're packing Murder's Mask in with the Killer Rabbit, you can hit something and go from a 3/6 to maybe like, say, doing some quick math here, 7/4. So, yeah, it really shows how scary Murder Mask can be if you're using alongside Rabbit. I might do a slight video deck showcase with the Murder Mask and Rabbit. See how that goes, just for fun. You never know. Things can become very fun very quickly. And let's move on to the Dancing Swords. They got a stat change to 2/4 with the Awaken ability of +3 attack. Now, overall, this is alright. They haven't seen a increase or a decrease of play since then. Because Dancing Swords, people favor the Ronin over the sword, which is completely understandable. I've seen some play of it, but overall, not too much. I think Dancing Sword is another one of those cards that were just like, alright, this happened, but nothing too serious. Going to Hooks now. Hooks got a decrease to 4 gold, trying to promote some Hooks gameplay, some dragging action, if you will, which is fine. Hooks hasn't been seen all that much since Windy Hooks, deck that definitely was fun during its time around. So it might, and in my defense, it might be coming back, possibly. I'm not 100% sure about that, but Hooks though is a fun card, and that decreased gold cost might make some decks a bit more viable. Moving on to Kargarom. Oh dear, Kargarom did get some interesting changes. Kargarom is now a 6/7 for 7 gold, with the same ability and the same gold cost. Whew! Now, Kargarom is definitely scarier. You really have to focus on him when he comes out, because he could throw off all of your other units like that. So, a strong change to Kargarom, and people have seen it. He's seen an increase in play since the change. People pairing him with the Defiance decks to make their guys that much more powerful while keeping the opponents weaker. Definitely a great change to Kargarom. Now moving on to the nerfs. There are 3 sort of divisions of nerfs. The first one we're going to cover is the Dojo and House. The Dojo got its ability stat to be reduced to a 1/1 rather than a 2/1. And the House got reduced to a only giving a +1 movement rather than a +1 movement and +1 attack. Now we have some notes on these. As these deck archetypes, Awaken and Rats, become more prevalent, their supporting buildings can no longer be left as the outlier in power. What that means is that basically cards that those archetypes, Awaken and Rats, were discovered to have these 2 buildings, Dojo and the House of Ninja Rats respectively, be the main reason why these decks are winning. Now that, of course, is not entirely true. People did find ways to sort of use them to buff their guys, but not not use the buildings as a win condition. I could be wrong. There could be those of you who did use these as win conditions, but that being said, the developers took note of this, and they made sure to hit it so that you can use them, but they're not going to give you the game win, if that makes sense. So, with those 2 buildings down, moving on to the spell changes that happened. Pacifism was reduced to or is increased to 3 gold, with the same ability, and Frozen Storm was drastically increased from a 4 gold to a 6 gold card. Now, the developer note on these is that these cards are too effective at stalling the game. Stalling should now involve more risk at more cost. So, if you're playing these 2 units and you're using them to save yourself, that better be worth it, and that should give you enough time to be coming up with a counter strategy. It should be giving you time to think of how to win. You really should be using these cards to effectively win rather than just delay yourself to lose, or giving you the win just by stalling your enemy guys so they can't get you. You should be playing these cards at an increased risk. Pacifism, I mean, people have been on and off about playing Pacifism, and I think that hasn't changed. Frozen Storm, though, people are using Ice Blast more and more now, because it's the same cost as Storm now, but you're getting damage with Ice Blast. So why go with the weaker of the 2 when you could just take in the Ice Blast full force? So, I mean, yeah, less stalling has occurred. I haven't seen Frozen Storm and or Pacifism since the change, so that definitely means that change sort of is working as intended. Now, the next 2 are units that have been highly criticized to, let's say criticized. People have been begging for this card or these 2 cards to be changed. The first one we're going to be taking a look at is the Yarm Giant. It got an increase in 9 gold to compete with Fenrir, because I guess, well, the logic here is that nobody wanted a Yarm Giant Fenrir combo to come out on them. It was just too much to handle, and to be fair, Yarm's like a 7/10 followed up by 5/8 in Fenrir. So now putting it at 9 gold, you're either choosing one. You're either going with Yarm or you're either going with Fenrir. And most people have gone with Fenrir over Yarm. He's seen a decrease in play since the change, but I mean, overall, people still like to use Yarm, and so do I, so it hasn't really died all that much. But putting it on the same level as Fenrir in terms of cost definitely makes it a bit trickier when designing Viking decks. And finally, the last change of this game in this patch is Flux. Flux has now got a reduced stat line to 2.5, which kind of puts her in a position where, do you want the cards, like, she's dropped out from being an auto-include, which is fine. People still play Flux, obviously, for the spells, and that's completely cool, too. But now I think you're giving a bit more variety to the 4 gold units, now lowering Flux's expectations. So, I like that. So anyway, that was the entire Mega Patch of June. A lot of changes, and I know I've been late on this. This video is probably gone to about a half an hour. I hope that's not a problem for you guys. Just so much to talk about, so much to explain. With that being said, if you guys did enjoy the video, please make sure to give it a like, share with your friends, and comment down below what you think overall of these changes, either in part 1 or part 2. And if you're already new to the channel, please make sure to go ahead and click that subscribe button. You can show your support to the channel just by clicking that red button. Don't even have to turn on notifications if you don't want to. If you do, I would appreciate it. But if you don't turn on notifications, that's quite alright too. So, with that being said, guys, not much else to say. So, stay gaming.